All right, it is 6 p.m. and I'd like to call this special meeting to order. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Robin, please call the roll.
Vaughn,
Here.
Loudon,
Here.
Ired,
Here.
String,
Here.
Schmidt,
Here.
Carpenter Davis,
Here.
Josie.
Here.
All right, since this is a special meeting, we will only be considering the one item listed on our agenda this evening, which is for consideration of a resolution calling a public hearing on the Rock Creek Redevelopment District number 4 tax increment redevelopment project plan. Laura, can you give your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, we recently had a conversation at a committee meeting about kind of the status of the Mission Beverly project that is being, or was approved with Millhouse Development previously. And as they have moved into the construction drawing stage, there were a number of additional infrastructure challenges that had been identified and other things that were putting some financial pressures on the project. And so we spoke with council about a number of options and alternatives that we had been discussing with the developer, and Ms. Devin Coffey with Millhouse is here this evening as well. And one of the things that there was at least consensus around coming out of that meeting was the potential to use tax increment funds that have accumulated in Rock Creek Redevelopment District number 4, which in the project plan, you see a map that's highlighted. It's just 12 parcels on the south side of Martway, and then it actually crosses the creek and picks up a couple of residential properties on 61st Street. That district was originally established in 2006, and so it has been generating increment over time. And until such time as there is an approved project plan, those funds just accumulate. And then typically we're used to seeing a developer submit a TIF redevelopment project plan, but they can also be submitted by the city itself. So in this case, the city has submitted a TIF redevelopment project plan for Rock Creek Redevelopment District number 4, seeking to use the funds that have accumulated within that district to reimburse the developer for approved and eligible infrastructure costs that will obviously benefit that specific project, but also because those infrastructure systems are serving all of the parcels within Rock Creek Redevelopment District number 4, as well as beyond, quite honestly, that it would be an opportunity to use those funds that were accumulated. We think that probably the redevelopment of the 3 parcels that are included with the Mission Beverly project, they're on the south side of Martway, are probably the parcels within the redevelopment district that are most likely to see significant redevelopment over time. And so we wanted to move forward. And so what is before you this evening, as you recall, anytime we have a TIF redevelopment project plan that is presented to us, it has to first go to the Planning Commission to be found in conformance with our comprehensive plan. So we created that redevelopment project plan. It went to the Planning Commission at their April 28th meeting. And then the next step, the council is not able to set the public hearing on the TIF project plan until after the Planning Commission finds that in conformance. And so that's why we requested the special meeting this evening. Again, time is really of the essence as the developer makes some decisions about critical decisions related to this project. So I am happy to answer any questions. Really, there's about $140 some odd thousand currently. We think by the time we would be ready to consider reimbursement, there may be as much as $220,000 in that TIF redevelopment district number 4. And so we wrote the plan looking to just take those accumulated revenues and again, reimburse that developer. So anything that was generated within the project area between January 11th of 2006, when the district was first created, and January 1st of 2026 would be what would be eligible to be reimbursed. And so the terms of that, should the council decide and adopt and approve the TIF redevelopment project plan after conducting the public hearing, those terms would be included in an amended performance agreement with Millhouse. That would be the vehicle by which we would then officially commit those. So again, the action before you this evening is simply adopting a resolution setting a public hearing for 7 p.m. at your June 18th, 2025 meeting. So you may recall that the public hearing has to fall no less than 30 days and no more than 70 days. I always get this wrong. From the resolution date. Thank you. So obviously we don't hit that 30-day window for your May 21st meeting. Be happy to answer any questions on this, but again, this is again, just part of the statutorily required steps for you to actually get to the point in June to be able to make a final determination about allocation of the TIF increment.
Okay, first, let's see if we have any public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this issue? If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak. We will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we'll call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments online? Seeing none, seeing no hands, we'll move into comments or questions from the council. Debbie?
Okay, can you clarify for me? I understand the other parcels that are part of that Rock Creek Development number 4. What percentage of the whole is the property that we're talking about?
I have not calculated that. I can certainly look at that, but we really are looking at infrastructure in and around and through parcels in that area.
I guess the reason I'm asking, they're asking for the whole amount of the monies that have been applied since 2006. Is that correct?
Yes.
And are we negotiating to do part of it? Or what about other parcels that may seek the same thing?
Well, again, there are a limited number of parcels. Some of these are residential parcels, which we would not anticipate that a development would come right through across the creek and into the residential neighborhood. So I think that there are options. You can, because the Millhouse project was approved for a tax abatement, you can't have tax abatement and TIF at the same time. And so we would anticipate or have anticipated that we would remove those 3 parcels from the TIF district at the time that we were issuing IRBs for the tax abatement, which would be, at the conclusion of construction of the project. There will be options at that point about what the council wants to do with the TIF district. So you could leave it intact without those 3, you could have another project plan. So we would review those, but we haven't negotiated. I mean, I think the developer approached us and, requested assistance really in excess of what's available in this TIF district. But it seemed like a logical application of having the opportunity while you have a viable development project in that area to really make those infrastructure
So they
improvements.
would buy toward the TIF versus the tax abatement, right?
I'm sorry.
So they would be part of the TIF and stay with the TIF and not take the tax abatement?
No, it's 2 pieces of the puzzle that fit together. And so this project plan would only look at that increment that has been developed. And they would have to, if the council approves it, they would fund the infrastructure improvements and then certify those expenses to the city. And then we would reimburse up to 100% of that ad valorem that has been collected. So we wanted to keep uh, the window short, and looking at cutting off any additional accumulation in January of 2026. But we would look at then using those funds, contributing those on a one-time basis. And then the council will have options about what to do with, so it's really contributing to improvements within the entire district is the way the project plan is written. It benefits this specific project, but it also benefits that entire area.
And is this group still getting a sales tax exemption on materials?
Yes,
Okay, so at this point in time, you're recommending or you're putting forth or conveying to us that all of the money that's accumulated since 2006 will be given to this one developer. Is that correct?
yes, not for construction of, it's not going to go for construction of any of their building improvements. It would only be for reimbursement of infrastructure, some of which the city would be responsible for in the future for either replacing or maintaining.
Thank you.
And that's, Laura, because a portion of those infrastructure costs were
Stormwater
stormwater.
related.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, yes, Cheryl?
So the four homeowners, there's no real impact to them. It's just the improvement of the infrastructure that's going to be done that will ultimately decrease their ability to be flooded or things like that, right? Okay, because I know there's one house on the south side of 61st that was flooded at one time because of the infrastructure being in such bad shape.
I believe that property, and I also believe the property on the north side of 61st Street are still in at least partially in the 100-year FEMA floodplain.
Yeah, Mary? Oh, sorry, Wanda?
I guess my question is, since I'm new to this, this is the only developer that's in this area, is that correct? That's asking for this? There's not any other parcels that would benefit from this that are being developed by other companies?
Not currently.
Not currently.
Right. So the development proposal for 8 parcels, which have been assembled, or at least tentatively assembled by Millhouse, which are both on the north and the south side of Martway, is the only development project at this
And
time.
there's no other developments that are commercial on this property or on this, in this tract?
Within the district, let me see if I can. You get in the packet to the picture of.
That would be affected by this change or this infrastructure is what I'm asking.
So in theory, all of the properties are going to be the stormwater infrastructure, in particular along the Martway frontage, is being relocated and coordinated with stormwater structures. So it's going to benefit development along this particularly the Martway corridor in the future. If you look at the district, you have Main Street Credit Union, you have a vacant parcel, and then you have Pinnacle staff, you have one other smaller office building, and then you have where the Martway office building or Pizza Hut buildings, as we affectionately refer to them as, which have now been demolished.
And Laura, these utility relocations would make those parcels also more redevelopable? Is that the
Yes.
idea? I don't know that that's a word, but we'll pretend that it is for now. That was, yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Leah?
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I understand. Basically, what's happening here is with this redevelopment, they are going to be taking more of that area out of the floodplain. They're going to be helping with replace that main water main, which benefits that whole area. And what you're proposing is that we just take the money that's been hanging out of this district through January 2026 and help reimburse them for some of the costs that they're incurring by these infrastructure constructions.
I want to be really careful in talking about potentially removing properties from the floodplain.
Okay, so maybe not
Um,
so much that, but
So
just-
if we think about in general, the Millhouse project, there are significant stormwater relocation a line about $750,000 in costs anticipated for that, and a line that we would eventually be responsible for maintaining and replacing. Their tax abatement project was negotiated, and it's a 75% tax abatement. It's not 100% tax abatement, and tax abatement is for 10 years versus 20 years on a TIF project. So it's different than each one of these, sort of has their own character and nuances. When the tax abatement was originally negotiated, there were about $1.1 million in infrastructure related costs between stormwater and sanitary sewer primarily that had been factored into the project budget when they came before the council. Since that time, there's approximately $500,000 to $600,000 plus in additional infrastructure costs, primarily related to water line relocation that have been identified. Part of those are because, and the mayor and I had, I think, a really productive conversation with the Water One's general manager last week, and just understanding that, how do we, when our zoning plans and vision plans call for building to the street, as opposed to more traditional setbacks that have occurred over time, how does that impact the location of various utilities and the costs associated? So I think that will be, developing in, in infill development is always much more challenging. So again, the initial 1.1 million in infrastructure cost was contemplated and factored into the decision that the council ultimately approved for the tax abatement. These are additional costs, and you may recall that Ms. Coffey came back and talked about other ways that we could assist. So we looked at, shifting the payment for the park later in the process to provide more flexibility. On the front end of that project, we looked at allowing them to convert the 1,500 square feet of retail to 2 live-work units, which factored into their pro forma a little bit differently. There was a request that was made to consider waiving our plan review and building permitting fees. There was this look at, so we really were trying to be as creative in the places where it might make sense if the council was interested in, working with the developer to try to bring this project to fruition. And this was one that seemed to align because we could match it up with the infrastructure improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, Laura, I'm reading through the 2019 ordinance that's in the packet, dividing up the district into several smaller districts. Is it fair to say the intent of these districts is to assist with stormwater and infrastructure challenges related to redeveloping along this corridor? That's sort of exactly
Well,
what was envisioned, if not
Yes,
codified?
the original district was city initiated. The larger district that has since been separated was really initiated by the city to address the revisions that had occurred to the FEMA floodplain maps back in the early 2000s.
Perfect, thank you.
And the idea is following those reclassifications that development will be more challenging.
Yes.
Okay. Laura, if we weren't to use the dollars that are in there for this, like what are some of the other things that these dollars may be used for? I guess if we're sort of, thinking of this as a decision to use it for this project and to support the district as a whole, like what would be?
Well, you
What
could
would it
use it
otherwise be for?
so for example, we've talked about further to the east, like adjacent to the lanes, phase 1, and some of the projects along the Martway corridor.
Mhm.
Again, because that TIF district has been in place for so long and was so large, this is not the only place where we have tax increment that has been generated since 2006. One of the things that we've talked about in that area, for example, is when we get to the Martway improvements, I believe in 27 and 28, that we could use a portion of that accumulated increment potentially to implement some of the additional things that we want to see along that were coming out of the Rock Creek Corridor study. We could, for example, use that, in the lanes phase 1, where we're have TIF revenue sharing with the developer. we could use those funds for public infrastructure improvements in that area. We could use it to repay debt service on the stormwater bond issue for the work that was done along the Rock Creek Channel. We just really haven't, I mean, if I look at this project area, and particularly because the Martway office buildings have now been demolished, the amount of increment that would be generated without development is going to be even less significant than what has accumulated over the last essentially 20 years in that district. And so we know that there are, at some point, will be facing a larger Stormwater Creek Channel project on that section from Woodson to the west. But $140,000, and quite honestly, the increment that's generated off of the residential properties or the other properties that are there currently is likely not going to generate significant revenue for other public improvements within that district.
Okay. Yeah, Debbie?
Does it have to be around zoning? I mean, could we not use it for the Beverly Park, for any park improvements? Is that money could be used still in the district?
The Beverly Park is not within the TIF district.
The one where they're moving is not?
They aren't official, we didn't officially relocate that park.
Okay, so
As a part of their
it's on the
project.
perimeter. on
It's
the other
north,
side.
so everything, yeah. So if you look in your packet, there's a map that looks like this. And so anything that is on the north side of Martway is not currently within the TIF district.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify that we really are we're just looking at, do we want to have a public hearing? That's what we're voting on.
That's
right?
what you're voting on tonight.
So they've already approved the project, and now we just need to have the public agree or not agree. Once we say, yes, we want to have a public hearing.
So
Is that what's going on?
the Millhouse project went through a series of public meetings, both for the zoning entitlements for a preliminary and final development plan with the Planning Commission and the council, as well as public hearings that were statutorily required for their request for the tax abatement. So over the course of 2023 and 2024, we went through that process. In fact, the city delayed the developer's request because we were revising our tax abatement policy. So in February of 24, the city council approved the tax abatement project and the IRBs for the sales tax on the exemption of construction materials for this project. And so after that happens, it's typical for the developer to then get their financing squared away, start to actually do the construction drawings to be submitted. And that's when they encountered these additional infrastructure costs.
So basically, we just need to say yay or nay. We're
Just
gonna let
call the public hearing, and
Yeah,
then
So,
in June, we can answer whatever other questions you have and provide additional information. So really tonight, we are simply setting the public hearing to make that an option.
And to that point, if we have our related discussion on this, I would entertain a motion from council. Yeah, Leah?
Mayor?
Oh,
I move that city council adopt the resolution setting a public hearing for 7 PM, June 18th, 2025, to consider the Rock Creek Redevelopment District Number 4 Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan.
motion and a second. Any additional council discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Josie,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis,
Aye.
Ryder,
Aye.
Loudon,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, before we adjourn tonight, I want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website at missionks.org. There being no further action necessary, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.